Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about Bluffside, City on the Edge from Thunderhead Games, a city sourcebook for any campaign setting. The blurb at the back is, civilization is still picking up the pieces from an asteroid strike hundreds of thousands of years ago. The epicenter, Bluffside. Only 200 years after being rediscovered, Bluffside is a boom town boasting the most precious metals in the known world, adamantium. From the ancient ruins to the vast undercity to the floating port of Sordadon, Bluffside, City on the Edge, is a city that promises to become the home port for thousands of adventurers. The first in our line of truly modular settings, Bluffside can be easily dropped into any D20 fantasy campaign world or in conjunction with any other products. Bluffside features new creatures, new prestige classes, new feats, dozens of new magic items, spells, deities, and much, much more. There's also some online support for this company, and this is for 3rd edition 3.0. So, I mean, it's D&D, let's face it. You could easily run this under 3.5, under Pathfinder. You could run this under any fantasy game as just a source book. Now, first up, let's just show you off. It comes with a spiffy map, so let's fold this puppy out carefully. Yep, here we go. Alright, so this is the city in question. Now, you'll note that the zones are separated by roads. So this is set up so that each district has its own own flavor and such. And they suggest that if you want to, you could use each district as its own city. So if you don't want to run this mega city, you could then run it as just use one city that fits your needs. Then you could, you know, use any of the other ones that you want to. And you've got the old city, mining district, temple district, military district, wizard district, or in the new city. So you could use any of them as that distinct thing, or you could use them as a district in an existing city that you haven't fleshed out, or you don't want to. You know, like I don't want to have to work for the military, do up the military district. Boom, use this one. So what we got in here, we have TrueMod. This source book and all of the source books that to follow are written in a truly modular, true modularity. TrueMod. Yeah, those little districts. Then it talks about places of interest. It gives you a whole section on the history of the setting. You have the timeline, which leads up to the disaster and then the rediscovery of the city and things like that. Discussions of the population, the power structure, which is the main political players of the area. The Bluffside proper, which talks about the districts that I have I just mentioned. They get into the Undercity, and the Undercity is pretty extensive. That was quite nice. I like that. They talk about the floating port, which is essentially a bunch of ships that eventually became more ships, until you had this Sargasso Sea structure of floating things that became this port where everyone now comes. So now some people could possibly not even be aware that it is actually a floating structure held in place by chains. But things about the guilds, secret societies, those are always good. Areas outside the Bluffside proper, farmlands, the Sundered Mountains, the Red Mountains, Red River, and Dealoo River, Cold Wind Forest, the Pertin, Kirkwood, the Targ Akala Beng, I just love those weird things, a Giant's Castle, the Fortress of the Orcs, Orcs of the Two-Fisted Clan, the Burial Mounds of the Barbarian Wilds, and the Bluffside defense outposts. Then they have further afields with discussions of the Sea of Ishkamark, Dragon Sands, and Steam Gnome civilization, because Steam Gnomes is a race in this. Then they have a whole section on religions, which is nice. And they're generic enough that you could figure them, play with them, or you could just say, okay, these religions, for example, the traveler, the builder, the miner, the healer, you get the point. So you could give them names if you want them, or you could keep them completely generic if you'd like. And there's a section of NPCs, creatures, guards, races, prestige classes, spells, equipment, magic items, feats, and domains. And this is license 1.0A, so it was like one of the first products put out. Now, what do you get in this product? Well, each area is broken down in like main components. For example, there are what? I think there's 17 specific areas for the old city. And for example, you have the Dragori Embassy, gives you a description of the place, gives you a brief write-up of the owner or a prominent resident. For example, male Dragoni Sa, which is a race. Sorcerer 11th, Expert 2, hit point 77, see Appendix 1. Apologize, my allergies. Then a description of that person, a list of the regulars, and then adventure hook ideas for that particular entry. Now, there are adventure hook entries for every single described location. There are full stats in the back of the book for every single NPC talked about in this book. Okay? This is a marvelous, useful book. Like I said, you could use any of these different districts. You could use any of these. You need a specific, like the Tribunal of Review and Retribution, the Black Boudoir. You need a boudoir? Boom. There you go. Hooks built in, ready to roll. You've got stats of the person that runs the place. For the Miners District, you have the Bluffside Regulars Post 17, essentially a union hall. You have the Adamantine Security Council, a brokerage house. You have the Uribe Estate. If you need an estate and a person who lives there, you're all set. And we have the Temple District, of course. Makes sense that you have the Dine Divine, a restaurant that caters to the ecclesiastical community. And again, with adventure hooks for every single thing. Taverns, merchants, armorers, weaponers, adventuring gear, alchemists, scriveners. Everything you could imagine is in this book that would let you drop them into any adventuring campaign you want to. And for example, some of the sewers look like this. That's awesome. The illustrations, in my opinion, run from the solid, well done, to the merely acceptable. Sometimes, you get some amateur art that doesn't really thrill me, but that's just me. But in the back, just page after page after page of NPCs, and you get the full thing, the full write-ups in here, and these are in alphabetical order on the back, and it gives you where to look for the person if you want to. It tells you come back to here. Like we have Armand Forst, male human expert 10, medium-sized humanoid, gives all their hit points, gives their languages. This person speaks Common, Elven, Dwarven, and Gnome. Skills and feats, possessions, which is 3 Candles of Truth, a Circlet of Blasting, Major, Boots of Speed, miscellaneous coins. Now, since this is 3.0, you're going to have to play a little with the different things. There are differences between 3.0, 3.5, and Pathfinder, and you may have to tinker a little bit more in case you're running 1st edition, or you're running one of the OSR games, or you're running 4th or the new 5th. But just the fact that you have all this information is going to make your life as a GM so much easier. Now, I picked this up off of the secondary market on Amazon. I think that there's still copies available. I picked up 3 books at the same time. I know I paid 1 penny for one of them, and the whole thing for all 3 books was $8, not counting shipping. Shipping was $3.99 a piece. But for the actual cover price, it came to $8 for 3 books. And this was originally $23. So I paid a ridiculously small amount for this book. And I bought it blind. It sounded like it was interesting. I'm thinking, I can't lose. You can't lose on a setting book. You know what I mean? I can find something in there for the price they were offering. And then I was very, very pleased to discover that this thing is just full of solid, solid and useful NPCs, and hooks. Adventuring hooks are so helpful. They really are. Of course, a good GM can just look at a tavern and come up with ideas based on the people that frequent the place and the people who own it. But it always helps to have somebody throw ideas your way, because let's face it, once in a blue moon, the creative well does run a little dry. But I recommend this book. Again, it's the Bluffside City on the Edge by Thunderhead Games. So go check out their stuff. Go to Amazon and see if they can still get a copy off the secondary market and get yourself one. I think it's well worth your time. No matter what fantasy system you're playing, you're going to be able to use this book for something.